All right. Hi, everybody. This is Leo Brady with AMovieGuy.com. I'm here with the unbelievable, the extremely talented Jena Malone, talking about her brand new film, Lorelei. Jena, thanks so much for talking with me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I'm going to ask you a very big question, but I promise you that there's a big point to it. So I was like looking at your career, and I'm sure you've gotten so many questions about growing up in Hollywood, but I'm looking at like your start, and the actors that you worked with are Jodie Foster, Anjelica Huston, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Christina Ricci. Those are all like actors that kind of went through the same path that you went through. Have you looked back at that and sort of correlated with that being a reason why you were able to sort of keep going, survive, and make it as an actor?
Gosh, good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, one never knows how you end up where you are, right? I mean, that's sort of the gift of life, is that there's 1,000 roads to take, and sometimes this is just where we end up. I think the only way I could answer that, and I'm sort of glad that I'm a mom now, because maybe I would have answered it differently, but I'm learning with learning things. Yeah. The best way that you can teach someone something is just by demonstration, like telling them like, well, acting is hard and, you got to do this. No one really listens to that. And so the best way that I think I learned about how to be an actor was just being around other actors that embodied being a great actor and being, professional and, amazing and inspiring. And I think it's through embodying and demonstrating that you can really have a really big impact on kids, and I think that I was really impacted by the strong and just amazing women and men
that I
got to work with. But I mean, the majority of the female directors I worked with was in the first 3 years of my career or whatever. So it was really, I mean, Anjelica was really the first entry for me of filmmaking, and the fact that she was sort of my shepherd, and my guide into it, I think was a real benefit and a bonus, because she's just so incredible.
Yeah, and you kind of have these like mentors to like learn from right away, which is, I think a way to learn how to do the job right from the start. So
yeah, and it's not like the things that they said, but more just like how, I think I really watched them. They were it was cool. They were like good actors too, like they weren't like showing up late on set and, they were leading by very good examples. And so I was very blessed.
Yeah. Well, and now if you were talking to a fan and a fan came up to you and said, Jena, my favorite performance of yours of all time is the Neon Demon.
Okay.
How would you feel? What would that say about that person watching your career?
I mean, I think it is one of my better performances. I think that it's one of the most, it was the hardest role I ever played, so, and I think, in the long history, I mean, villains there's so much room, right, to build. There's almost, sort of more work to be done. So I think a lot more was demanded of me. So I think I would be excited. I would say thank you. That's really, I think that they would be very like, like they actually get it,
Right. Yeah, they're actually like following you for not just like sort of the not that they're bad, but it's like anybody could say, oh, I remember you from the Hunger Games, right? It's like that might be the most recognizable film, but I think it says something about audiences when they're sort of capturing the art, the work that has a little bit more depth to it.
Yeah, but art aside, I mean, there's a lot of words that we place on films, and we think a big budget, means blockbuster, and a small budget means art, but really it's all storytelling, right? And so however you're affected by it is actually the best way to be affected by it. So, I mean, there's a lot of like beautiful high art things that were happening in Hunger Games, I mean, there's just 1,000 ways to be inspired by someone. So I never like to say like, this film is here and this film is here. And like, I just love when someone comes at me with appreciation or something from like this random thing. I'm like, that's so cool. Like the shelf life of film is sort of eternal, right? I could make something 20 years ago and people are still watching it and being affected by it. And so you never really know who the audience is going to be, you know?
Yeah. Well, and then, and two, I mean, you've worked with some great directors. Do you tend to sort of look out for those things, or you just kind of, I went through the list of Paul Thomas Anderson, So Young Kim, Joe Wright, Robert Zemeckis. I mean, is that just, do you kind of hang that on your hat and look at that as you've been lucky, or do you kind of always look for the newest artists, the newest directors to work with?
I mean, I've been extremely lucky, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, it really, you know, acting is such a strange trajectory where it's very non-linear. It's not always about being the best or, you know, the best act. It's not like, it's not an athletic, it's not like an Olympian sport. So
Yeah.
the fact that I've gotten to work with so many incredible directors is, it's just a gift. Like it's
Yeah.
so cool. And I think it's really taught me a lot about filmmaking and just storytelling. And I think the first part of my career, I was more focused on the script. It would just be like, I would read a script. I didn't even care who the director was. And I would just be like, yes.
Yeah.
And then I realized that script is sort of nothing without the vision of the director. And so I started focusing more on writing and directors, I think, later.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Lorelei. I mean, that's the movie that we're here to sort of celebrate. I think it's impossible to talk about your character of Dolores without even sort of mentioning your upbringing and your life, which I think is just absolutely beautiful and fascinating. Um, how did this character of Dolores, how did you relate to that? Was this an easy character to step into?
No, she wasn't easy at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes the ones that are the most personal are the most intimidating, or it feels sort of dangerous sometimes. I felt like I was sort of becoming my mother or something, you know.
Yeah.
It was definitely in homage of my two moms,
Yeah.
and also a lot of the women that I grew up with, you know, working 3 part-time jobs, you know, kids, dead end housing, dead end living, like just like all of the odds sort of stacked against you and just barely being able to sort of meet the poverty line most times.
Yeah.
Which is a really normal circumstance, you
Yeah.
know, and I think we think that it's so far out and on the sort of outer edge, but really, I think there's so many people who are tottering on that line that I think to not really like glorify that story. I think previously a lot of stories of sort of like that blue collar working class can be glorified to a certain point, and I think that the glory is not in the circumstance, but rather how someone rises through it, or you know, is able to live through it. And I think that's what this story really focuses on, you know, is how these people transcend their circumstances.
Yeah. Well, so, and I have kind of one more question for you, and I want to value your time and my time. But I sort of want to merge two together.
Amen.
Yeah, but like working on Lorelei with Pablo Schreiber and with your director Sabrina Doyle. Can you talk about the collaboration with the two of them? I mean, obviously, it's such an emotional film, and I just thought it was absolutely beautiful. Her direction and the acting between you two. How did you guys all three get together to make that work?
I mean, it's all Sabrina's vision,
Yeah.
really. You know, I mean, she wrote an incredible script. She brought amazing actors in, a lot of newcomers, first timers. I mean, most of the cast was cast locally in Portland area, which there's like such an interesting, thriving
Yeah.
film community up there. I don't know, the best films I've ever worked on are ones where it's always a gift of collaboration. You know, it's sort of allowing people to bring what they bring, and then having the director kind of, you know, bring it all together somehow. And I think she had a really beautiful gift of being able to do that. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's about that trust, and it seemed like you all really trusted each other in the process, which I loved. It shows up on the screen.
yeah, I mean, it got rough, you know, it's hard
Yeah.
to shoot a film. I think we did this in less than 22 days or something, and you know, it can be really brutal, but I think that when you love something, it's easier to sort of go through, you know, hard times of like trying to get the scene right, and you know, collaborating. And yeah, I think it's really nice that this film's finally getting to come out, because we all
Yeah.
really did
Yeah.
some beautiful work on it. So
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's actually one of my favorite performances of the year from both of you, from you.
Oh
And
wow, sweet.
yeah, beautiful. I really loved it. In theaters, select theaters this weekend, and on demand. I hope audiences go out and see it. It's really an emotional film, and it really hits the heart. And I think we need people to learn.
And mermaids. Don't forget the mermaids.
And
You know,
mermaids.
bikers, mermaids. I mean, there's all sorts of unexpected twists on this
Yeah,
one.
and a great cast of children. I love the kids in this movie. They're all
Yeah,
great.
they're incredible. They're absolutely incredible.
So, all right, Jenna, thanks so much for talking with me today.
Thank you.
Love your career. Thanks again.
Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Bye.